Hello and welcome to this MCP webinar. I am Sameh from Apify and we are joined today by Sebastian from Make.com and Jorge. Sebastian is head of AI over there and Jorge is an AI engineer. And we're all super excited that you're joining this MCP webinar. Obviously, MCP has been a big topic today, so we're excited to kind of show you what we're working on and some of the ways that you can use for your AI and different agentic workflows. So let's start with the agenda. Okay, so what will we be doing today? Okay, so why do agents need data? And I'll give you a bit of intro into Apify. We will look at what is MCP and why we believe it's a game changer. Then I'm going to take you through a demo on how to actually install the Apify MCP server locally. Then you can use that on cloud desktop. So we'll look at a lead generation agent and SEO agent. I'll hand over to Sebastian and Jorge. Sebastian will take you through an intro of Make and some of the exciting things they're doing in AI and agents. And then Jorge will take us through a demo using the MCP server and maybe something surprising later. And towards the end, we will have some Q&A session. So you have the link for the comments and questions. Feel free to send it. All right, so let's get started. So with Apify, you can actually equip your agents with over 5,000 tools. And why is this important? As you know, agents need the latest and most comprehensive data for the best outcomes. So when you think of, for example, an agent that will create content for you, you'll probably want to chain a data extraction agent to an AI content agent. But that data extraction agent needs data that is relevant, that is recent. So for example, from Twitter, from Google News, from Reddit, from YouTube, and of course from Google Search. But many times the issue is that a lot of websites don't like to be scraped. So a lot of you might have encountered this issue when you're trying to maybe scrape data that you need, that you get IP address blocking. There are, of course, HTTP headers, fingerprinting, honeypots, JS content rendering. So there's a lot of complexity when it comes to actually getting this data. And that is where Apify comes in. We have over 5,000 published actors. So these are actors are basically software that run on the cloud, and we have agents. We have over 21,000 community developers to help us with these actors and agents. So it gives you a large selection of different scrapers, different actors and agents to use. On a monthly basis, we scrape over 4 billion pages. And we have, of course, over the 10-year history, several options on proxies and complex web extraction handling. And more importantly, I think with Apify, we give you the kind of deterministic logic that you need in structured data sets. So if anybody's rolled out agents, you know that in many times when you're trying to do a task, it's very probabilistic. But with Apify, you really get established agents. So for example, for Amazon, where you can actually extract into established data sets things like the title, the price, rating, etc. And what that really means is that you have millions of inputs and outputs that are predefined, that are tested. These are building blocks that you can plug into your agent easily. All right, what does this mean? In reality, this means that you can lower your token costs. So instead of getting your LLM tool or AI to try to kind of scrape that website, you've already know that you can use a deterministic actor that has scraped that website before. This increases accuracy, dependability, and speed. So for example, when you're trying to scrape something like Google Maps in the Apify store, you can scrape that for less than 0.04 cents. It's lightning fast and it has high accuracy. A lot of it to do with the fact that there's a 6 years experience in scraping Google Maps, for example. Or we have, for example, a backlink building agent. And you can craft a fully sequence of emails with scraped profiles for around 5 cents. So if you were to do this yourself, it will probably be more expensive. And this kind of agents that we're rolling out, Apify, are tested, and in a way, the token costs will be less than you were trying to do it, let's say, or trying to resolve it through the AI alone. But here's the issue, right? We have all of these actors and agents, but how do you actually create the logic to use them, to deploy them, and to test them? So anybody who's maybe tested different software or API services or actors knows that the learning curve can be steep. So this is where we believe MCP comes in. With Apify MCP, you can actually provide your LLM tools, your agents with natural language inputs to use actors without all of this kind of underlying complexity. When we go through the demo, I will show you exactly how this would look like. In terms of, some actors, obviously there's a steep learning curve, but with MCP, you can use, for example, Claude, to use natural language to start these actors, to resolve perhaps all the complexities of these actors, and eventually to choose actors which you can, again, use on agents on Make, or you can chain to the, thousands of, for example, Make apps and agents, things as diverse as HubSpot or Google Sheets, etc. All right. This will massively increases the speed of testing and deployment of your AI agents. And I think at this point, I would like to go to the demo. But before then, we will share this promo code. We will also send it to you afterwards, so you can, grab a screenshot here. We have 2 promo codes that you can use, and let's go to the demo. Okay. So in this demo, I want to show you how you can use the Apify MCP on Claude. And obviously, the first thing that you want to do is go to Claude and download Claude Desktop. Okay. So when you do that, obviously, right now you don't have any tools. So we will need to kind of add tools to that. So let's start out by going to Apify. Go to the Apify store, so apify.com. And if you don't have an account, you can just get started here. Use Google, GitHub. Okay. All right. So let's start by looking at some of the READMEs for the MCP server that we have. So you can find the MCP actor. And on Apify, all the information usually is on this tab. It's granular information on each actor. So in this case, we want to use the MCP server on Claude. And you can find all the instructions down here. So MCP server at a local host. So there's some things that you need. This works really well on Mac or Windows. For Windows, I will also attach some additional information to you on the follow-up email regarding some debugging if you need to. Of course, you need the latest version of Claude Desktop, which I have installed. You need 2 things. You need Node.js, so Node and NPX, and you need the Apify API token. For the token, you can just go to your settings over here. And under API integrations, you can create a new token. Obviously, tokens are sensitive, so I will be creating a token. I've already created one for this webinar, but it's simple as, create a new token. MC webinar token, for example. And just click on create. One thing to note, don't limit the token permissions. With the MCP servers, you really need all of the existing permissions there. Okay. So I have my token here, so I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And then what I will do is I will go back to the MCP page that was there. Yeah. And over here, you can see that there are instructions on how to fill in what's called the config JSON file on the Claude desktop side, right? So this is the actual code that you will need. And I will show you exactly how to do that. Obviously here where it says Apify token, you need to put in your token. Over here, you can list out all the actors that you want the server to use. So basically what you want Claude to use. Let's go ahead and open Claude. I'll be using Cursor. I would recommend that you also, so I have don't have much of a coding background. My background is marketing, so I was a CMO for a cybersecurity company. So for me, using tools like Cursor or Copilot on VS Code really helped accelerate a lot of this MCP stuff, and also a lot of what I'm doing right now. So we can start out by going to the settings here. Let me just pop that up for you. And you will see under here, there's something called the developer tab. You can just edit the config file. That will pop up your file here, which is the Claude desktop config file. Now, what I did, of course, was I associated all JSON files with Cursor just because it helps me to kind of debug any issues that I might have in the future. And take it from me, it is a lot less headache. Okay, so just open that, and it pops up in Cursor. Over here on Cursor, you have the AI pane, so you can just go ahead that if you need help. So I've already prepared the config JSON file based on the readmes that we looked at. So I'm going to go ahead and add some actors to my MCP server. Right, here you go. And by the way, again, like we said, you need Node.js and NPX. So if you have any issues downloading those, Cursor can help a lot. So this is another reason why I recommend working with like a tool like Cursor, because you can install all the dependencies you need, and many other MCP servers that will have different dependencies than this one. Okay, so now we have some actors that are loaded. Let's go ahead and save this file. And what we need to do now is actually quit Claude, and let's start it again. Okay, so it takes a bit of time. The one way to check if things are working is just to go to the settings again, and you can see here in the developer tab now I am running the actor MCP server. So it's reading all the actors that I have. So this is a good way to see which are the actual tools that are currently in your MCP server. And soon these tools will be available in this tab. In the meanwhile, while the tools load up, I can show you how I usually work with Claude for best practices. So again, here the tools have already loaded. So you can see that I have 40 tools, and I instantaneously loaded them up from just a simple config file that I put on Claude. Okay, brief description of some of the tools. Get actor details is an important tool. It allows actually Claude to get the details, the different readmes of the actors that we have. This is quite important because it gives the context that the client, which is Claude, needs to actually run those actors. And over here, it will be a listing of all the tools plus a brief description of the tools themselves. The way I like to work with Claude first is actually set an overall system prompt. So for example, here I'm using personal preferences to ensure that Claude gives me the output that I need, especially when it comes to tone of voice and other things. Another thing that I like to do here, and I think this is especially important as you start to kind of sandbox or have your playground, is to kind of split a lot of the agents into projects. The projects themselves also allow you to, for example, give ragged knowledge to the actual agent. And you can do that over here. You can just edit and basically give the system prompt. Now, all of this is quite important because it allows you to get better outputs because you put the actual, LLM, in this case, Claude, into the context. And then you can take some of this, of course, and apply this logic to, for example, make agents. Okay, for this, I actually let me do something. I would like to actually add maybe one more actor here. So I see here, I don't know if we have read it, but let me see. So it looks like we don't have Reddit. So just to show you how quickly you can simply add an actor, I would like to add Reddit to my set of tools. So I will go back and find the Reddit scraper. And as anybody who works in SEO knows, Reddit is a great source of data, especially because it's a lot of obviously LLM tools now get Reddit data, and it's key for SEO. So how do I add the Reddit scraper? So I can just go to the name of the Reddit scraper, which is here, copy it to the clipboard, and I can go back to my config.json file, and I simply add it over here. Right, make sure to structure it. If you do make any mistakes, you can just ask Cursor, for example, which has both an agent and AI mode, if this file is okay. Yeah, and it told me it's valid, so let me save that. And let's go back to Claude. Again, we need to, quit this. But, at the same time, I think while I'm here, I would like to also install the some Make tools. So I'm going to do that. So Make also has an MCP server, which Jorge will go through. So I will also install it here on mine. Okay. Let me pop this up. Add this into my... So you don't have to think about how to structure the JSON. It's simply as let the agent do all the work for you, basically. Okay, so that's good. And let's save that. And let's quit Claude. And let's restart so that we can see what our new tools are. Okay, you can see now, I think the Make tools loaded already. And now I have some nice tools from Make, which I can also run within the same LLM tool. And I'm just waiting on some of the Apify tools because I have about 40 of them to load up. So we added the Reddit scraper, but again, I can check over here. Now you can see that I have two servers running. I have the Apify server and I have the Make server here. Let's look for Reddit. Okay, so the tools Reddit. And you can see the Reddit scraper that I just added. So it's kind of seamless. You can add as many tools as you want. Now, my recommendation, of course, is to, especially during the testing phase, to limit the number of tools to control the, because you will get a lot of hallucinations when you add too many tools. It's always better to work on something, have it work in reality, and then add more and more tools later. All right, let's go through an example of what we can do here. So I have a use case here. So when I was working as a CMO for cybersecurity, there was a lot of times that we needed to reach out to what are called managed security service providers, or MSSPs. a lot of these MSSPs were located in certain geographic areas. So, for example, we were selling data loss prevention solutions, and we would target MSSPs in Ohio or New York. And geography is very important for MSSPs because a lot of the times customers would only trust a local agency for their cybersecurity needs. So this is a perfect use case where you actually need to do some Google Map crawling for lead generation. I do have, let's say, some prompt that I worked on here. So I will actually run this prompt. Let me start within the same project. And just for the sake of time, I will limit this to 10 results. Okay, so what am I doing here? I'm going to call six or like 5 actors, and I'm going to have the actual Claude who, as you can see, we just gave him the tools now. He's going to figure out how to use the tools or how to scrape this based on kind of all the context that's given by the MCP server. So we're going to look for MSSPs in New York. We're going to limit it to 5 results for now. After that, we're going to try to get their contact details and plus scrape some of the contact info from their websites. We're also going to analyze the website traffic and performance because this will be a kind of a key indicator of which of those companies have a lot of domain authority or one that we would actually want to target. And then we're going to try to kind of find white papers, case studies, or product info using Google search. Okay, so that's the task, and you can let it go. And actually, one thing that I would recommend is to extend the thinking. So this does take a bit more time, but it does help you with results, and you can just do that here. So now it started. As you can see, even if you've never used this tool, you can get the LLM to use it for you. So if I go back now and look at how things look like on my platform, here is the actual run that's been triggered by the LLM. Maybe give you a brief about the actor itself. It's a complex actor. It's very powerful, but you can see some of the input schema is very complicated, but at the same time, you can actually use the LLM to kind of, simplify that complexity. And you can see now the run has stopped. And if I go back, it's running to the second actor, which is the contact details. Again, if you go back and look at some of your runs, you can see the contact details actor is running here. Just to give you a brief about what's happening. So the actor already is extracting some contact details from those MSSP providers that I looked for. One way to actually see if this is correct is the origin of the call was made by MCP server. So this origin here will tell you that. So it keeps on going. It's a bit fast, but here we go. It's calling the third actor. So it basically shortlisted it into some of the companies that we're looking for. And this is all being done by the Claude via the MCP. And it will continue to kind of do that until it gets me the output that I requested. So that's one way to do it. And obviously, another thing that you can do is, okay, now you have all this data. What do you do with it? You can actually now also call, for example, make tools. So let me see if this is going good. It might actually finish so that I can show you how we can call some agents on the make side directly from Claude. Again, maybe just to kind of give you ideas about what's happening on the Apify side. You can see the runs are being triggered by Claude now. One thing that I like here also is the log. I can see here there was no output. Oh, actually there was. So it did hone down on this particular MSP. And again, this is something that you can work on, combining different actors together, and eventually it's calling now another company on another actor over here, which is the contact details actor. And anytime you need to actually see what is going on, it's inside the logs of each run that was done, including the input that's being mapped straight from the cloud side, right? So the logs are over here. Okay, so now it's actually gathering some website data analytics for one of these MSSP providers that we said. Okay, so I'm just gonna stop this, and this is great. I want to show you one more thing, for example, before I go to our Make friends. You can actually now, for example, trigger this and say, okay, choose one of the best prospects and run the backlink make scenario. Okay, you can give it more context if you need. I think I have a backlink agent that's connected to my cloud currently. This actual agent will trigger, let's say it's here, agent flow. This actual backlink will trigger a backlink agent on our side. So the backlink agent, what it does, it identifies, for example, some keywords that are driving business. It will identify different websites for those keywords and different places where you can actually put a backlink. And based on that, it will create custom sequences like on LinkedIn or email. So you can actually run this straight on the same client, which is this Claude. And let's do that. Okay, so now it actually gives you more insights about what it's thinking. And now it's calling to the MCP server on Make side, and how that will look like is basically, if I go here, I can see the history that is now running since 5:30, this backlink agent from the Make side. And on my side, I can see the backlink building agent is being run straight from Make. And eventually this will actually, you can now use this to utilize Make apps, including HubSpot or other Make agents. So while this is running, I think it's a good segue maybe to go to Seb and Jorge, and I think they have some great things to say about what you can do with Make agents and MCP.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I will just continue in case you missed something. I brought Jorge, and big thanks to Sameh in super short. Okay, now let's dive into it with Make and how to jumpstart your AI agents with MCP. There's, of course, this huge wave of AI agents, AI automations, and a lot of LLMs coming out. Every week there's a new top leading model. Well, this time not, because Google is leading since some weeks and some benchmarks. But hey, we're all riding this wave together. It's sometimes a bit shaky, sometimes the waves are bigger. So one of the things currently on top of the wave is definitely MCP, even though the protocol still has some challenges. We will figure that out along the way. Nevertheless, I'm super happy to demo you some of the things today with Jorge here, and also dive deeper into it, what we will show. So let's see a bit what we have done and where we are going. So what we've done, and some of you already know this, and some of you have seen this, we have delivered Make AI agents. We will continue building them out. They're going to have way more and way better capabilities along the way. And right now we're focusing on offering Make MCP server. There was an unofficial Make MCP server on the internet. Nevertheless, there is now our official release and our official documentation around it. I will dive into it in just a second. And also, next, some of you know this from our Make waves. That's why we have also this synonym of the waves there. The grid. Make grid is about to also help you visualize and understand your agents better, how they interact, and also helps you seeing all the tools, all the complexity with your MCP servers. So this is just the beginning, some feature / product roadmap insights here from our side, because a lot of people ask us, hey, like, what are your plans? Like, what do you do next? So now let's dive a bit into what you can do with Make and how it actually enables your MCP journey. So one of the first things, and we'll share this with you if you want to via the channel, chat in here, also later via an email outreach, you can turn any scenario. So maybe you don't know Make, and it's like, what is the scenario? Scenario is kind of like your configuration, your workflow. You can turn any of your scenario to an MCP. So you can connect this in your MCP server to all your tooling. And Jorge will demo this to you in just about some minutes. And Make offers you basically these MCPs, easy to integrate. The best, you can reuse every scenario. And this is really, really neat, because this allows you basically that your scenarios are API endpoints. So if you configure, for example, Google Sheet, and you want to return data from Google Sheet, or you want to list certain items in some shop system, you can simply do this via Make within your scenarios. And you can reuse these scenarios and sub-scenarios and agents and MCP. So basically, maybe some of you played Lego in the past. You can now play Lego in Make. And how does it look? Let me give you really like an example that maybe everybody can relate to. Let's meet Zoe. She's the owner of an online store shipping 150 items a day. Like, that's super classical, so many businesses. If it is from fresh products to just shipping furniture or whatsoever, you have stock and you need to manage your stock. And now the question she asks, like, hey, how can I actually apply AI in my business to control and manage stock? So she's kind of like the operator that likes to operate like in ChatGPT or in Claude. And there you go. You maybe want to connect this directly with your Claude desktop to be able to say, hey, if this item in my stock expired or I don't have that many in there anymore, I want to reorder. So you could do this via an automation, via an AI agent, via MCP, via various ways, and we're going to dive a bit into this. So let's take, for example, here her Shopify case. She's having her online store on Shopify, and now with Claude MCP, she can basically connect to all these scenarios. In this case, we have 5 scenarios connected. We have the check the teams, the Shopify stock products, the vendors, the providers, and the contracts. So basically, she can fully steer her online shop from within Claude and actually manage that, which is kind of neat, because ultimately she does not need any other interface. Previously, you might have built yourself a bubble interface, or you built yourself a software interface. You don't need this anymore. You can directly go from AI to execution. So you can chat with your LLM, and you can actually let it work for you. But for the work, you need certain deterministic executing pieces, and these can be scenarios. So let's check this in more detail, how you can actually access AI in Make, what I just said, these scenarios. So you can do this via chat interface. You can connect it via a YAML file. You can generate this YAML file, but you can also, and this is way easier later, do it via MCP, and we'll get to this. You can connect your scenarios. So as you maybe know Make, just go in there, build something. But you maybe see on this little screenshot here, we have now scenario outputs, and that allows you a whole new way how to use scenarios. So scenarios can become now API endpoints, and you can really execute everything and return data. This is really nice. In case you have something that runs longer, like Apify, you get back an ID, and you can call back this ID at a webhook. So you can actually also work in scenarios via API externally and actually make it work. So of course, agents, it's a hot topic on the market. You can use these tools also in agents. And last but not least, some of you here might be coders. You want to use these tools you define. So let's say you have a lead on HubSpot, Salesforce, Pipedrive, and you actually want to build this into your source code bases. You can do this really straightforward weird scenarios and actually wrap this around. So, but hey, easy to start is actually via MCP. You can just connect it to your Claude in this case. I assume that the other providers will soon probably provide you MCP import ways for service as well. So everybody continues in scenarios, maybe builds agents and reuse these tools there. And also, if you then from agents want to go to code, you can do this. Now, I've been talking probably way too abstract, and some of you might think, well, this is nice, but tell me, how does it actually work, and how do I get it to work? And therefore, the probably best colleague around the world I have here with me today, that's Jorge. And Jorge, I would say stage is yours.
Sorry for that. I don't have a nice presentation as Seb. I have a to-do list. And I want to be sure that you are guys are able to use Make MCP today without issues, right? And I want to just double check that everybody understand how to do. So we have a documentation in developers.make.com about MCP server. You go to this link, and we recommend using the cloud MCP server. You basically for Cloudy, you just copy paste this, and you have to put your MCP token here. How you get that is basically you go to your Make account, your profile, your API, and you create one like with the create token. With this new token, when you click add, you will copy that to the JSON. And as in this webinar was said, you go to the Cloudy config and paste the JSON. So with that, I would open Cloudy and I will see all my tools here that are Make tools, right? Um, so one of the you the potentials are unlimited. So you can do whatever you can do in Make. Now you can do it calling an MCP tool, right? So for example, we have a colleague here that I want to check his LinkedIn URL. So I created the tool. While this is thinking, that will not take a lot. Um, let's think that this could be a more complex tool or a really simple one. And if we go to the make scenario that this is happening, right? Right now we only have one module that is the Apify one that has some of my account already configured and some of the fields that I want to customize that are deterministic. The benefit here is that I can custom tailor precisely the behavior of the tool without even having to code. So let's go to the Cloudy. Here, for example, yeah, it got the URL perfect. So the benefits here are that you can build your own tools and you can have a personalized experience. You don't rely uniquely on the provider creating the tools for you. Now you can define your own. So let's go for this one. I also, for example, just for fun, I can also post something in LinkedIn, but let's not wait for that because it's more of the same thing. And for example, the interesting one, when you have a lot of tools, as Seb mentioned before, in Make, you can, let's forget about the LinkedIn one. You can do a lot of things. In my case, for example, imagine instead of a stock system, let's say we have a Jira ticketing system. It's very, very close to that. And I want to create a new ticket and assign some of my team to work on it. And I have some description of what the ticket needs to be done, what's the title. In this case, my teammate is younger, so I need to, use Gen Z language to create the ticket so he understands. In this case, for example, I am not, I am the agent will understand, or in this case, it's very verbose, right? it will start to execute all the necessary tools to fulfill um, my request. That is, okay, create a ticket, but to Pepa. Who is Pepa? So it's part of my team. Then, okay, how I get the ID of Jaira to assign that person to the ticket? Okay. The second is, okay, how I get the key of the epic, because the ticket has an epic there. um, and all these tools are ready to be used by the agent, right? And we can see like it got the team names, it got the account ID, it got the Jira epics with their key to be created, and basically there is another tool that is create a Jira desk. So we go to the Jira task at hand. Right now, I have a new task that says no cap, we need something, right? um in a Gen Z vibe. And for me, for example, didn't took me a lot to do without coding anything, basically just using Make. In fact, if we go to the a similar configuration that you can do in Make right now, because we have Make agents, you could see that there are tools that are scenarios, right? That can be used at the same time by Make agents, and at the same time served for with Make MCP, right? So this is you build once and you use it independently of what is your preferred flavor. You can use Make agents, or you can use any external system with MCP. Let me show. And for example, just for fun, I connected my agent um in Make with my Slack, and I can do the same here. Just for fun, to show that the same tools that are, for example, this one, I would choose. That to show that the same tools that are in the MCP can be used both in the MCP protocol or the Make agent, and you don't have to worry about the complexity of handling all the interconnections there. Let it think it's doing its stuff, because in this case it's probably going pulling Joe is one of also the works in the same team. We are pulling his LinkedIn profile, pulling his latest post using Apify, and calling the agent again and doing a summarization. Yeah, summary of. Yeah, we can see that it's doing a summary of the latest stuff. So with that, I end my demo. As you can see, once you nail the tools are simple, scenarios that that can or cannot have complexity, because this is up to you. You can start, with a simple tool, and then start to add more stuff as you see that there are some cases that are not covered by the initial tool, and you want a more production ready environment. With that, I go back to Seb. I hope that if there is any questions, I will check the chat. Thanks.
See my stereo view now, but you should. Great. Okay, cool. So in Make, you can, for example, define your Shopify app. You can iterate through all the products, you aggregate all the products, and then this is like the most important piece, how to set this up. You go to your outputs and you define your output structure here, and you can simply return your whole JSON string that you aggregated. And we make it really, really easy to aggregate this and return the whole bundle back. So if you compare this to alternative products or alternative automations, it's sometimes really, really hard to do this. And in Make, we try to make this really, really easy to return you the whole API listening. One important piece is you need to change scenario to on demand so you can actually use this via an API. So how does that work? We have a really extensive API documentation. You've seen probably the API documentation of the MCP. If you go here to the Make API and to our API reference, you see that we have probably one of the most advanced API documentations of all the automation platforms out there. You can completely control all your scenarios, all your SDK apps. You can completely control Make via API. And I think this is super, super great, especially when it comes to AI and to developer experiences. So let me do one more example. This could also look like this. So if you search rows and just return the output directly, it can be also a really, really small scenario that you use to plug in into your automation. Then, of course, you need to read a bit through the API documentation, how you connect to these scenarios and how you run them. This goes beyond today's webinar, but we want to show you basically the capability and inspire a bit of imagination of what you can achieve. So now let's go a bit into the future. We're currently exploring if agents need access to MCP. We come to the conclusion that actually that would be really, really powerful if agents can choose dynamically, basically these scenarios as kind of like their API endpoint. So MCP kind of like replaces API functionality or mimics API functionality, even though if you check out the protocol, it's still returning the JSON structure and the API URL that the LLM then should later call. But hey, that's an implementation detail. So in this one, we're exploring right now actively if agents should have access to MCP. Let me know in the comment if this is interesting, if you think, well, agents should have, or with what you've just seen, building a scenario is good enough. Then you can, of course, implement Make like an API. I've been already showing this to you, and I hope this makes a lot of sense in case you want to dive deeper into your coding experience. Now, there is this piece what I already tried to emphasize, imagine now. And Jorge, would you be up for sparking a bit more imagination what you can achieve with Make?
Okay, so let's open the section of spark imagination, not presenting a feature, but what if in the universe. For example, in this case, we just hacked an app that would use MCP in Make, so you don't have to install anything and directly use. In this case, for example, we are trying to use Apify. So you would add a token here about the Apify token. You would say that, yeah, the token goes in the header or something. Then you put the base URL that, if you follow the documentation of Apify, tells you. And if you do that, this will automatically show the tools that you can use. And one of them is that I have some of them, and one of them is the web browser. So I will search in the web browser, passing arguments in the query search and make AI agents. So in this way, we could, have one module, one tool of one module, one MCP tool that you can add to your scenarios without too much complexity. Of course, the search can take a little. But the idea is that to spark imagination, that we are, let's put it this way, to give a statement that we are looking into it, we are aware of it, and we are tinkering with it. But I cannot promise anything because Seb told me not to do to do it. But yeah. So basically, this is just the demo of the Spark Imagination section. That's all on me. I go back to Seb.
Thank you, Jorge. Yes, as you just said it, it's something we're testing. It's something we are not really sure if this is valuable. So yeah, let us know in the chat if you think agents should have direct access to MCP, if we should integrate this, because this helps us to prioritize our features and our roadmap planning. And therefore, these webinars and these community interactions are super, super valuable. And yeah, just maybe drop in agent plus MCP if you are interested in this. Yeah, and with that said, I think we are quite close to an end on the side of Make. Sameh, how's it going at your end?
It's great. Thank you guys. That was really good. And it's exciting to see what you guys are cooking in the lab. I can't wait to see what you and Jorge come up with. So I think everyone is excited. We do have some questions, so maybe we can actually go through them now. So the initial question regarding Cloud Desktop and Windows. Let me just pop that up. I think, yeah. I did actually post a link answer to that question here. So if anybody is having issues, I will also send this as kind of a follow up to this webinar. So if anybody has issues, obviously loading Apify or Make MCP on Cloud on Windows, there is debugging over there in that link. We had another question regarding if we can use MCPs for AI agents in Make. I think this one here. Maybe you want to take this?
I'm happy to take this. So can't use MCP for AI agent and to make, do we still need to create a new scenario for each action? Right now, you need to create a scenario for each action your agent should perform. If you, for example, use right now an fire crawl or a similar solution, or if you use Apify or stuff like this, which is right now popping a lot up on the MCP side, I still think you go really well with the Apify app there. So yeah, I would say right now the best way is definitely creating a new scenario, but we're working on making this easier.
Okay, great. We had another question this on the Apify side is how can, so as developers, how can we ensure that my tool will be part of Apify MCP? So that's a great question. Actually, one of the key ways, and this is something that we're going to be doing, is make sure that there is a certification for different actors. So there's 5,000 actors. So what I can recommend for developers is that they would work on their READMEs, ensure that they have clean and structured input and output. This is key. When we looked at our MCP server, you saw that there was a tool get actor details, and that only works if you, as a developer, and if you have an actor or an agent that has clear READMEs, that has clear input and output. And I think even on the Make side, that's also very important. We had a hackathon with Jorge last week, and giving actual clear descriptions, giving clear input scenarios and output are both something quite important for both Apify and Make, I think. So that's kind of the number one recommendation that I would make. I think you guys would also agree. There was another question regarding can we use from Doc Solution, can we use MCP's whiteout without installing Cloud on our desktop? I think you can use actually MCP with several clients, right? Like Cursor is one of them actually. And I think the standard itself, the protocol itself is becoming more widespread. So you can actually use it with OpenAI and other LLM tools. It's a bit more complex. It's not as seamless as what we showed. And obviously now you can see that, soon with Make, you can extend the functionality of MCP. I don't know if you guys have any other follow-up to that question.
Works for me.
All right. Okay. I think this was actually a follow-up, like using an Apify MCP number one. Yeah, I think this is something that was covered now by Jorge. Okay. Just going down to see if there's any questions. Is it okay? That's a good question. Tanzim asked, is it feasible to make MCP server for smart contract? I'm not really sure what that means. Maybe from, I guess, Web3 point of, I don't know if any of you have any perspective on that question. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about Web3. Okay. Okay, so there was another one for you guys. It was from Marco. So, will it be possible to access tools directly from the AI agent scenario?
Maybe I can show us a second how the scenario works right now. So can I share my screen a second?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So for example, the scenario that is in charge of listening in my Slack is this little guy. It seems convoluted because it's basically how I want to handle the context or how much I want the agent to be, aware of my Slack conversations. But the idea is that here you go to your agent and you have all the tools. And yes, right now if you want to edit your scenario slash tool, you click here and it will pop up the corresponding scenario, and you can see the history on the right side and do the any edits that you want. Um, this tool is shared across all the agents. That's the power there. That this agent here is using it, but any other can also use it. That's why it's like not directly embedded here, but shared across different agents.
Maybe I can add some points there, Jorge. This is really good. Of course, like I saw it in the chat and some people compared this to N8N. So N8N was like the first provider providing non-deterministic workflow execution via AI agents. That's what it kind of like technically is. So you have now like as a product company, you have like two options. You can either like copy your competitor, or you think about it a bit differently. So what we did is we treat scenarios as reusable components. The power you just saw. You can use your same scenario that you connect to your agent. You can use an MCP. You can use via API. You can use in scenario inputs outputs. So all of these scenarios are reusable components. Yes, we know we need to make it easier to actually build them, connect them. That's for sure. But our reusability and component packaging, this is like something really core fundamental that has been decided when we introduced scenario inputs and outputs some while ago. Also, when you think about our global tooling versus local tooling, that's also a real differentiator. If you think about it beyond, you can have multi-purpose agents. That allows you actually that you can use one agent that you configure globally, but you can reuse the same agent in multiple workflows with different flavors. So you can have one marketing agent that actually helps you scraping, let's say, LinkedIn, another one scraping Facebook, another one scraping Instagram, if we're in the context of Apify here. So you could have one agent with three different flavors and three different purposes. So adding this to your note there. Thank you.
All right, great. Just looking if there is any other questions. Maybe this one is this one is not really a question, but it's a suggestion. I think for Jorge, maybe we need to work on something. Make automation to hand off sound when the presenter is speaking.
Why not?
Let's see if we can get sit together and solve this, because it seems like a complex issue sometimes. Okay, just wait a few minutes, see if is there any, we'd like to, of course, thank everybody for attending. You still have a few minutes if you want to, or if there is a question that we missed in the chat, maybe you can post it again, and we'd love to answer it. But it looks like we have all the questions now. Okay.
May I say a little comment regarding, because I saw a lot of questions about Make AI agents, right? Make AI agents is available on our pay tier, any pay tier. And as it's important to mention that we just released agents a few weeks ago, right? And we plan to invest more on it. So this is, if you think about it, this is the baseline. From this, we are starting from this. So we will add more stuff for sure. Also for the MCP features on the server side.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jorge. So I think we had another questions about Cloud Desktop on Windows, but as I said, we'll share the link on this follow-up email if you need any debugging. And also, I will share my email, so you can send me an email if you're still stuck somewhere. We can help you through that. I would like to, thank you, Sebastian and Jorge. I think, this was a really productive hour that we had on MCP. It was great to see, both companies presenting, and it's an exciting field. I think it's still a very early field. A lot of the technology, it's only a few months old actually. So I'm super excited to see how this will develop in the next few months. Thank you. Thank you all for attending this webinar. And we'll send a follow-up email. Please give us your feedback. And I'm sure that us and Make will have these joint activities in the coming few months. And we'll hope to see you there. Thanks, guys.